And we're just going to have a look at the end of the play now with, the scene with Roderigo and Iago. So Roderigo is tortured. Oh, it's silliness to live when to live is torment. The love that he feels for Desdemona is overpowering him. Now, he also says, when we have prescription to die, we have prescription to die when death is our physician. So basically, when you're this tormented, you should just kill yourself and die, which foreshadows, therefore, Othello in Act 5 when he does the exact same thing. Iago thinks this is ridiculous. Now, it's important we realise his intention here is not to be kind to Roderigo, but to keep Roderigo alive so that he can take money from him and use him as his puppet. Essentially, though, at this moment, you could argue he is actually saving him from death, but he's keeping him alive till the right moment when he'll eventually kill him in Act 5. Not too dissimilar to what Dumbledore does to Harry in Harry Potter. Iago's attitude to love is very clear here. He says that he'd never met a man who knew what was good for him. I'd rather be a baboon than kill myself out of love for some woman that I can't have. That is where he says, I would drown myself for the love of a guinea hen. I would change my humanity with a baboon. If he was ever going to drown himself over a guinea hen, he would rather be a baboon. He would change his humanity. Now, love of a guinea hen, the guinea hen there is a woman. So again, there's that animalistic language used to describe women. Iago thinks it's ridiculous to feel anything so dramatic just simply over a woman. You can argue that leads towards, lends itself towards the theory that he is a homosexual. Roderigo then pitifully turns to Iago. What should I do? He's relying on him like a child. And he says, I confess it is my shame to be so fond, but it's not in my virtue to amend it. This is a lack of power. Roderigo is accepting that he can't do anything about how he feels, about how much he loves Desdemona. Now, you might think that that's true or untrue, and Iago in his response certainly thinks it's not true. But let's just pause there a minute to just focus on the fact that this is the overpowering nature of love, and this is exactly what we could argue happens to Othello in Act 3. It is his shame to be so fond of Desdemona, and it's not in his virtue to amend it. But also, it is his shame to be so angry and devastated about Desdemona's cheated on him. He can't control his anger and his desire for revenge, for violence. Could also the same be said of Iago, given that we find out in a second his motive is also because he thinks Othello was cheated with Emilia. Now, I think it's hard to argue that Iago is out of control at any moment in this play. But it is possible to argue that love or lack of love or reputation is one of the things that leads him to react this way. Sorry, just had to pause there. Hopefully this follows on. Iago's response then proves that he doesn't think that it's okay to be overpowered by love when he says, our bodies are our gardens to which our wills are gardeners. This is really important. This is, I think, a really important line to understanding Iago's character. He believes that our bodies are gardens and our will, so what we want, is the gardener. And therefore, what happens to us is controlled by our will. Our will should be something that enables us to basically make the life that we want to live, that we're in control of ourselves. And he really believes that you shouldn't feel weak or out of control about anything. Now, this puts him in stark contrast to both Othello and Roderigo, who both allow themselves to be run by their emotions. Iago allows himself to be run by reason, and you can argue that actually that is perhaps the most sensible way to live. He says a bit further down, we have reason to cool our raging motions. And that's the best evidence that Iago, to highlight the contrast between Iago and Othello and Roderigo. And then we got that great line where he says, drowned cats and blind puppies. It's just plain mean. So we've then got a really good persuasive speech from Iago. He repeatedly tells Roderigo, put money in thy purse, put money in thy purse. That is because he wants his money. So the first reason that he gives him is it cannot be long that Desdemona should continue her love to the Moor. So he argues that Desdemona will stop loving the Moor soon. The second reason is that it was a violent commencement in her, and thou shalt see an answerable can't say that word either. So basically, he's saying that it was such a violent beginning that it can't be long until they break up. Okay? His third reason are these Moors are changeable in their wills. So it's a very stereotypical judgmental statement that because of where he's from, because he is a Moor, he will change his mind very quickly. He then says, reason 4, she must change for youth. She'll want to have a new lover. She'll get bored of him. When she is sated with his body, so when she's bored of being with him, she will find the errors of her choice. Therefore, put money in thy purse. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean that she's going to go to Roderigo, even if any of these reasons were remotely possible, which we later see Desdemona's devotion to Othello mean no, they are not remotely possible. For reason 6, he says that he can get the better of a few flimsy vows between a misguided barbarian and a depraved Venetian girl. So a frail vow between an erring barbarian and a super subtle Venetian. So he basically suggests that Othello's a barbarian, that Desdemona is just a wayward girl who's made a stupid choice. Their marriage is frail and he can get between them. This is the most truthful thing that he has said, at least in terms of what he is capable of. Then he says, thou shalt enjoy her. Again, suggesting and undermining Roderigo's love for Desdemona. Arguably, because he's not just feeling that he wants to enjoy her, he wants to be with her. Pure manipulation of Roderigo's desires. So this pure love, arguably, that Roderigo feels to Desdemona becomes a tool for Iago to manipulate to do bad deeds. Iago then ironically says, you are sure of me, thou art sure of me, I will not let you down, you can trust me, go make money. Okay, and he then highlights to him, I hate the Moor, again, repeated. If you can cuckold him, so if you can make him seem, if you can cheat with Desdemona and cuckold him, make him a man who's been cheated on, you will be in pleasure, because he'll have slept with Desdemona, and Iago will feel it's a sense of sport. There's a feeling here then that Iago is doing all of this for pure joy, because he likes to see people hurt. Arguably, he has further motives, and we find that out when Roderigo's left the stage. So there's a sense that Iago is hiding part of who he is, the more vulnerable side, the side that suggests he has a more serious motive than he just likes to mess around with people. Although there is a suggestion that he does like to mess around with people. To finish off the scene then, Roderigo goes, blah, 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 and he says this great hyperbolic line of, I'll sell all my land. So essentially, in the space of a few words from Iago, Roderigo's gone from killing himself to selling all his land and giving it to Iago because he believes that he can win him Desdemona. There's no logical reason there, and that's ironic because Iago's just promoted reason, and Roderigo has just ignored all reason and allowed himself to be persuaded by Iago. And as soon as he's left the stage, Shakespeare makes Iago say very clearly, thus do I ever make my fool my purse. I'm always getting my money from fools. He's arrogant, he's insulting. It suggests that he's driven by money and materialistic gain. These are all features of a psychopath and a Machiavellian villain. He calls him a snipe, which is an idiot. And he does it all for sport and profit. However, this is the moment he reveals his other motive. It is thought abroad between my cheeks, he's done my office. He has slept with my wife. He says, I know not if it be true, but I for mere suspicion will do it as if for surety. So I don't care that I don't have any evidence, I will do it anyway. Proof that he's far more evil and cruel and driven by the need to protect himself than Othello is, and the Duke, because he actually doesn't have any evidence, and yet this is one of the reasons he hates Othello and is willing to destroy his life and Desdemona's life. He doesn't even care about innocent bystanders. Roderigo, Emilia, Desdemona, all stand in the way of him getting revenge on Othello, and he brings them all down with him, just because of mere suspicion. That's a quote. Iago then ends the scene by plotting his plan live on stage. How? Let's see. Very quickly, he's so professional, and everything he says in the next few lines happens. One of the most important things then out of this, apart from the fact that it gives you the plot for the rest of the play, is the more is of a free and open nature that thinks men honest. So Iago is manipulating Othello's flaw, that he has a free and open nature. He is trusting. He thinks that people are trustworthy, and he basically has a sort of general assumption that people are nice, and Iago is going to manipulate that. Now, Shakespeare teaches here about qualities of good and evil, and how evil and bad intentions can actually take advantage of the good people in this world. So you've got this argument really that Othello is the light of the world, Iago is the darkness, trying to sap the happiness and love and joy from everybody. And there's a lovely quotation in Act 5 where he says that that Cassio makes him feel ugly. That Iago needs to eradicate all these good things because they make him feel bad about himself because he's so bad. So we've got an insight here into really just how manipulative and Machiavellian Iago is. He is a typical villain, cunning, and doesn't care about the damage that he does. However, Shakespeare, I think, doesn't necessarily highlight that we should all just be bad people and forget about being good. I think he just perhaps argues that there will always be people who will be fighting against good. And that's just a fact in the world. There will always be bad people. There will always be bad things happening. I remember for the tragic form, that's really important to establish that. By the end of the play, even though a lot of good people have died, Iago has been kept at bay. So the idea might be there that evil can never be eradicated, but it can be kept at bay. And that is it for Act 1, Scene 3.